In the previous video, I went through the PLA Air Force Premier Air Defense System, the HQ-9 Surface-to-Air Missile System, in detail. We have established that the PLA Air Force enjoys some very advanced air defense capabilities fielding it. Although the PRC has been the world's second largest defense spender since 2007, and with a fast-growing defense expenditure year over year, it still does not enjoy the luxury of the best or nothing mentality in air defense adopted only by the United States. The HQ-9 system, though advanced, is just too expensive to be procured in the number that the PLA is comfortable with under its strategic environment. In a rare review during last year's Zhuhai Air Show by a PLA Air Force officer, an HQ-9B interceptor costs as much as 5 million Chinese yuan, or about $1.37 million with purchasing power parity, or PPP adjustment, using the World Bank's 2023 data. This seems to be a lot cheaper than the $4.3 million per missile price tag of the SM-6, with the most comparable performance. But considering PRC's smaller defense budget, even adjusted by PPP, the HQ-9B and HQ-9 in general are not particularly affordable to equip every long-range SAM unit of the PLA Air Force. The PLA needs another more affordable long-range SAM system to fill the gap, and that is the HQ-22. Before we dive deeper into more details, let's zoom out a bit and see the big picture that formulated the requirements that led to the design and development of this system in the late 2000s to early 2010s. The first requirement, as we already mentioned, is lower cost. There are many ways to build a cheaper SAM system, and they would always mean making it less capable. But for the PLA, there's only so much room to compromise on performance. The SAM system needs to be potent in a potential conflict with the United States. So the second set of requirements needs the new system to be considered long-range, to be able to handle most modern aerial threats such as low-flying cruise missiles and air-dropped guided munitions beyond just maneuverable fast jets. As discussed in another previous video, if you're interested, please click the top right corner. Even in the 2000s and 2010s, the PLA Air Force still maintained a large volume of HQ-2 SAMs in active service that were fundamentally early Cold War era relics. At the same time, the PLA was still fielding newer HQ-12 SAM systems, which are basically significantly modernized HQ-2s. Both of these systems are reliant on the old-fashioned all-the-way radio command guidance, which requires ground control, not just target illumination, but also flight path calculation until impact. So as another requirement, the new SAM system should be backward compatible to this older stock to sustain air defense as long as possible in preparation for a war of attrition if things went terribly wrong for the PLA. With these requirements in mind, it would be easier for us to understand the HQ-22's design and performance characteristics. The HQ-22 can operate under two different guidance methods, both of which are less sophisticated compared to the terminal active radar homing used by the HQ-9, where the missile itself carries the fully functional radar and can track the target independently at the terminal phase. The first one used by the HQ-22 is the terminal semi-active radar homing guidance, meaning the missile's own seeker is only capable of receiving reflected radar signals from the target illuminated by the fire control radar on the ground, rather than having the ability to both send and receive radar signals. The second one is the all-the-way radio command guidance, where the fire control radar tracks both the target and the missile, while at the same time providing flight guidance to the missile. This is the result of the backward compatibility requirement. To achieve long-range status on a budget, the HQ-22 has a simpler launch mechanism. It adopts a more conventional slant launch mechanism, launching its missiles directly towards the target at an angle. It loses the 360-degree attack capability that the HQ-9 system has achieved through its vertical cold launching system. The engagement envelope is also reduced significantly compared to the HQ-9. Here, let's use the HQ-22's export version, FK3's data, to represent its performance. The max engagement range against the typical fighter jet target is 100 kilometers or 60 miles compared to HQ-9's 125 kilometers and HQ-9B's 260 to 400 kilometers. At the same time, the minimum engagement altitude is pushed up from 25 meters to 50 meters. We might want to ask the question, what caused the degradation of performance of the HQ-22 compared to the HQ-9? There are a wide range of factors, and frankly, with the secretive nature of SAM systems, many of those factors might never be known. For example, the type of rocket propellant used, the material of the airframe, etc. But there are also other more theoretical factors that we can assume with educated guesses. For example, the choice of the cheaper and simpler semi-active radar homing guidance probably played a significant role. As we mentioned shortly above, even at the terminal phase, a semi-active radar homing missile relies fully on the illumination of ground radar to locate the target. The missile's maximum engagement range is reliant on the power of the engagement radar. The greater the distance between the target and the ground radar, the weaker the power that the signals from the ground radar carries. To some extent, the radar signal from the ground radar is unable to provide enough resolution for the semi-active radar homing missile to hit the target. As the equation demonstrates, the max range of a radar has a force-root relationship with the transmitted power. If we want to increase radar range by 50%, when all else equal, we need to increase the transmitted power to 5 times as before. This will be less of an issue for an active radar homing missile, as it does not rely on the ground radar to provide pinpoint accuracy at distance. It only needs enough resolution to know the overall location of the target, and then turns on its onboard radar to locate and hit the target. For similar reasons, in theory, the semi-active radar homing missiles have more difficulties engaging low-flying targets compared to the active radar homing ones. When a target is flying very close to the ground, it may be blocked by terrain. This would interrupt the illumination of the target by the ground radar, causing the semi-active radar homing missile to lose track of the target. This will be less of an issue for an active radar homing missile, because the missile would fly to high altitude, then turn towards the ground, turn on its onboard radar, and search for the target from the above without its line of sight being blocked. This is not all. The HQ-22 likely does not possess an anti-tactic ballistic missile capability. All around, the HQ-22 is inferior to the HQ-9 system, except in its price. And that is actually what the PLA Air Force is looking for. A good enough long-range SAM that is capable of handling more traditional aerodynamics threats, such as attack helicopters, fighter jets, cruise missiles, and airdrop munitions. The price factor means that the PLA has been able to procure the HQ-22 systems at a rapid pace since the initial induction around 2016, to replace many of the HQ-2 systems that were still in service with the PLA at that time. According to the data from Military Balance, by the end of 2022, 6 years after initial induction, the PLA already possessed more than 20 batteries of the HQ-22 systems. To be more specific, the HQ-22 system is not only the replacement of the old HQ-2 and the relatively newer HQ-12 system. It can also be considered the offspring of these older systems. We can see a lot of similarities and connections when we look at the firing unit's configuration of the HQ-22. Just like most mid to long-range SAM, The basic firing unit is referred to as a battery. An HQ-22 battery is also centered around its engagement radar. The designation is still unclear. Usually, the radar commands 6 tail vehicles, each with 4 ready-to-fire missiles. Interestingly, the 6 tail vehicles or launchers per battery setup can also be found with the HQ-2 and the HQ-12 SAM systems. So you may have now noticed PLA SAM systems use a naming convention that a +10 in the designated number means a next-generation system which is designed to fill similar roles that follows the same lineage. But there are exceptions, of course. The HQ-12 is designed to replace the HQ-2, and the HQ-22 is designed to replace both the HQ-12 and the HQ-2. Here we can see a unit that was previously equipped with the HQ-2 as late as 2015 and was switched to HQ-22 with mostly the same base infrastructure. There are also other assets supporting the operation of a HQ-22 battery. Just like a HQ-9 battery, an HQ-22 one also contains a dedicated search and target acquisition radar. In this case, the massive Type 776 radar. Other command and control, communication, and logistic vehicles are also essential. For the battery to be able to sustain itself longer during engagement, the battery has a few sets of missile transporter and loader vehicles. The reloading process of the HQ-22 is pretty unique. It involves 3 vehicles, with the missile transporter vehicle, the loader vehicle, and tail vehicle working closely together. The spare missiles are carried on the transporter vehicle. A crane on the transporter vehicle would move the missiles onto the loader vehicle. And then the process relies on a rail system established between the loading vehicle and the tail vehicle, through which the missiles slide onto the launcher. The process may seem clumsy, but it is actually more efficient in a high-tempo environment, because loading the tail vehicle from the loader vehicle would be relatively fast. Loading is able to be completed in a matter of few minutes. Hence, the tail vehicles may not need to retreat to a safer location further away in order to reload. Well, this is absolutely necessary with a more conventional and slower reloading mechanism. The mechanical design of the reloading system is relatively novel, indicating PRC's ability to indigenously design and develop when needed. Being a relatively new system, there are a few crucial pieces of information that we don't know about HQ-22 system. For example, we don't even know the official designation of the engagement radar. Many sources just refer to it as H200 or HT200. But these designations are likely pointing to the engagement radar used by the older HQ-12 system. This radar is one of the early 3-dimensional phased array radars fielded by the PLA, with not so impressive performance. It can guide 6 missiles to engage 3 targets simultaneously. On the other hand, from the promotion material of FK3, HQ-22's export version, shown in various airshows, its engagement radar can guide 12 missiles to engage 6 targets simultaneously. Though looking at the older H200 and the unknown engagement radar of the HQ-22 side by side, we could see some level of resemblance. So I would make an educated guess that the HQ-22's engagement radar is a road mobile, improved version based on the H200. We have been talking about how, compared to the HQ-9 system, the HQ-22 is cheaper and less capable. That is only half true. Yes, the interceptor itself has worse kinetic performance, and the engagement radar might also have less detection, tracking range, and processing capability. But the search and target acquisition radar generally associated with an HQ-22 battery is a different matter. The giant but still mobile Type 776 radar is an active phased array, P-band, or ultra-high frequency band three-dimensional early warning radar. It operates with a significantly longer wavelength compared to the C-band and X-band radars the current 5th-generation stealth fighter aircraft are optimized against. Hence, in theory, an HQ-22 battery would have better situation awareness when faced against modern, very low observable targets. Inducted into PLA service only in 2016, the HQ-22 is considered quite new, with little evidence pointing to a newer variant in service with the PLA. But that does not mean the lack of iterative development. Although the PLA Air Force seems to be happy about the trade-off between price, system complexity, and the lack of 360-degree attack capability, hence exclusively operates the slant-launched version of the HQ-22. The system actually offers a vertically launched version as well, and it was exported to Thailand. Here we can see the Royal Thai Navy's FK-3 tail vehicle with its missile tubes erected into the vertical launching position. Recall that we mentioned the effort to equip the HQ-9 system with smaller interceptors, hence providing a battery with a greater magazine depth. That effort is also applied on the HQ-22 system. Here we can see a group of 4 smaller missile tubes in the place of a single larger tube of the vertically launched FK-3. This smaller new missile is designated as the FK-3B. Although we haven't seen the smaller B variant missile being inducted into PLA Air Force service, it would be a logical next step for us to expect as the need to intercept numerous precision-guided munitions and cruise missiles increases as such threats further proliferate around the PRC. Until this point, I have gone through all the PLA's indigenously developed long-range SAM systems, namely the HQ-9 and HQ-22. Although these domestic systems are about 2/3 of the PLA Air Force long-range SAM inventory, the Russian-made S-300 and S-400 systems still play a significant role in defending PRC airspace. There are enough content out there discussing these two systems, and we are also able to somewhat observe their performance in real time in an active war. Hence, I won't spend too much time here. What is interesting to me is to clarify a myth that there's a license-produced or fully reverse-engineered S-300 system built by China, called the HQ-15. This myth is well circulated among Western sources. The HQ-15 SAM system is said to be the Chinese license-produced version of the S-300 PMU or PMU-1 system. But this is likely just a rumor, as there's no evidence pointing to PLA operating a fully copied or license-produced version of the S-300. Of course, these rumors are not baseless. The fact that the PLA operates the S-300 system, the PRC's inherent preference of production at home, and its ongoing effort to develop the HQ-9 system at the time when the rumor started made them quite plausible. According to this research published by the PLA-focused OSINT account Iron Lady on X or Twitter, in 2021, the PLA Air Force operated 5 brigades of S-300 systems. Assuming the regular composition of 6 batteries per brigade and 4 launchers per battery, that would bring the total S-300 tail vehicles operated by the active PLA Air Force SAM units to 120. This is very closely aligned to the total of 128 tails of all S-300 variants that the PRC imported from Russia, hence indicating that there is not a license-produced S-300 system, also known as the HQ-15, in PLA service. According to a prominent Chinese-language defense commentator, Yankee, the HQ-15 rumor likely started during the military parade celebrating the PRC's 50th anniversary in 1999. From recollections of defense enthusiasts who attended the parade, they claimed to have seen the letter HQ printed on the missile canisters of the S-300 systems. Here, from a video shot during the 1999's parade's nighttime rehearsal, it indeed seems to show the letter HQ printed on the canisters. 1999 was not particularly stellar for the PRC, as its embassy in Belgrade was just bombed by NATO in the Kosovo War. Perhaps out of desperation, these defense enthusiasts held on to the belief that the S-300 system they saw might have been produced in China itself. Being the most advanced surface-to-air missile system in the PLA service for more than 15 years, the S-300 or quote-unquote HQ-15 systems were responsible for some of the most important locations. Just like the first SA-2s imported, the first S-300 units were assigned to protect Beijing. As more S-300s were delivered, they were deployed to other strategic locations such as Shanghai and the Taiwan Strait. To close out on the big picture, let's have a look at the scale of the PLA Air Force ground-based long-range SAM systems. According to the Military Balance 2024, do note, this source may provide a more conservative estimation of the number of PLA assets. The PLA Air Force is the second largest long-range SAM operator in the world, trailing the Russian Aerospace Force and leads the US Army. It operates close to 700 long-range SAM launchers, most of which are systems designed and developed in the 21st century. Going forward, the size and quality of this force will keep improving. More Russian systems will be withdrawn from frontline service and then fully retire. Older HQ-9 will be further replaced with more advanced HQ-9B and HQ-9C systems. More mid-range HQ-12 SAM systems will be further replaced by long-range HQ-22 systems. But that is not all. To further face the threats emerging in the coming years, such as various medium, intermediate, or even intercontinental ballistic missiles, hypersonic glide vehicles, and cruise missiles, as well as space-based ISR assets, the PLA is equipping itself with a family of more advanced SAM systems. We'll further explore these advanced upcoming systems in later videos. Make sure you will catch them when they release by subscribing and hitting the bell on our channel. Having said that, I am planning to expand the content of this channel beyond just PLA SAM systems. So please also be ready for a change. Until next time, take care.